to get back into it.
Welcome to Your Journey. I'm your host, Chuck Lewis, and we got a special guest with us today in William Tutu Ferguson, aka Houdini. What's going on, Tutu?
What's going on, man? What's going on?
Nah, man, glad to have you on the show, man. I know you're gonna have some great stories, man, along your journey. It's been an unbelievable journey. What's been going on with you, man? Family, just life, etc. How's everything going?
Everything is good, man. Just working at the high school, chasing the kids around, doing that kind of stuff, man. As well as my son, man. He's a teenager now, so between all of these things, man, just keeping myself busy, man. Staying active, playing sports too as well. So just that's basically it, man. Just staying active, staying busy, keeping myself occupied. That's about it.
Man, that's good to hear, man. I'm glad that you're keeping yourself occupied. We got to these days. We're getting a little older, you know what I'm saying? So we can't come off the dribble like we used to. We can't go out there and make plays. So, you know, it's good that you still staying active, man. That's the best way to be. So we're gonna get right into it, man. So Tutu Ferguson, you grew up in the Braddock area for most of your life, from the Pittsburgh area. Talk about what it was like growing up there as a kid.
Growing up in Braddock, had a little bit of everything. We had diversity in school, obviously. But you had a little bit of everything, man. We had, with so many bars being around as a kid, man. It was a ton of people everywhere, man. On every street corner, man. The businesses were striving as a youngster. And we was doing what kids do, man, just running around, being mischievous, and that's about it, man. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah. So actually, before you actually kind of got over into the Braddock area, if I'm not mistaken, you grew up kind of like in like Hazelwood area. Talk a little bit about that experience and how you kind of transitioned to Braddock.
So as a kid, man, before I ultimately stayed and lived in Braddock, we bounced around a little bit, man. I was born in Wilkinsburg,
Okay.
man. First 6-7 years of my life, man, I went to Wilkinsburg School District, went to Kelly School. The family was always from Braddock, though. We lived in Wilkinsburg.
Okay.
Left the Wilkinsburg area about second grade or something like that, man. Came to Braddock. We moved to Braddock. We lived in Braddock. Went to Ben Fairless. Went to Wilkins. Went to every school in the district, man. Went to every school in the district. Some of them are shut down now, but at about age 11 or so, man, we moved to Hazelwood. We moved to the city, man, and I spent like the next 3 years in the city schools in Hazelwood. Went to Bergwin, went to Gladstone. Bergwin has since been closed down, but I think both schools is closed down now. But then we made our way back to. Well, I made my way back to Pittsburgh, back to Braddock ultimately. In around the seventh grade, man, and that's where I finished off my school career, man. But Hazelwood was a little different, man. The city's a little faster.
Yeah.
In the 90s, man, 91, 92, 93, man, it was littered with drugs, and we had gangs all over Pittsburgh, Bloods and Crips, and I seen all of it, man. I witnessed a couple drive-bys in Hazelwood as a youngster, and again, man, just like living in Braddock, man, I wouldn't change it for the world. Came back to the Braddock area in seventh grade, and I never left Braddock. We just didn't live here. I was on that 56B. I was on that 56B, man. Like every day, I got on the 56B every day, man. Ran an errand, lived on top of a variety store, Mike's Variety Store. All these buildings is gone now. I ran an errand for him. I go get his coffee. I go get him a coffee and a snack from the store. He give me $2. I would get on the PAP bus, drive to Braddock, still play sports in Braddock even when I lived in Hazelwood. So I was in Braddock every single day. So,
So, so you talked about playing sports. At what age did you start playing sports, and then what sports did you start with?
well, what's different now is the kids don't play outside too much. They don't play pickup football and pickup basketball and baseball, man. As kids, man, we did it every day. So I played sports. I played sports all my life. I played sports 7, 8, 9 years old. Uh, competitively though, competitively probably with referees and uniforms and things of that nature, man. I was probably around 10 years old.
Yeah.
In fact, man, my first ever basket in an organized basketball game, I scored for the other team. So I stole the ball and I stole the ball. It's crazy, man. I was shady side. I stole the ball. Nice steal. Ended up scoring for the other team. Everybody, I'm like, man, don't nobody chase me or nothing, man. I can remember that like it was yesterday, man. That was my first bet. That was my first. That was my first bucket as a basketball player in an organized basketball game.
Yeah.
So it was awesome, man. It was awesome.
No, that's good, man. And so you move into your adolescent years. You make that transition to Braddock. During your adolescent years, you move in with the Chansey family. Talk about what that transition was like for you and how that impacted you as a young man.
Well, when I ultimately moved in with the chances before that, man, I didn't have much structure in life, man. I was running the streets. I was an OG at 9 years old, 8, 9 years old, man. I used to be at Eli's. Like I hear a lot of older folks now talk about Eli's, the pool hall that was on Braddock Avenue,
Mm.
but there wasn't a lot of youngsters allowed in there, man. But I hear youngsters talk about it now. But it was only like maybe 4 or 5 youngsters that was allowed in Eli's, and I was one of them. And names like Big Munch and Torben and guys like that, man. At the time, man, I would be in there with them, man. It was accepted, man. So that again, that was an awesome experience as well. But once I moved in with the Chanceys, it was structured, man. Mom and dad both was working. Got a chance to eat dinner every night, man. What I mean, Christmas time was a lot of Christmases, man, where I didn't get things for Christmas uh, on a yearly basis, man, until I moved in with the Chanceys. So they really showed me that you could still live in the hood, and the family was first, man, and it meant a lot. I was rough around the edges at first, though. I remember stores one time, man. Took this man Snoop Dogg came out with this album, man. Dog, I think it was Doggy Style, his first album, right?
Yeah.
I had to, man. He took it off me and Mike, man. Like, what I mean, because it was a little disrespectful towards women and things of that nature, man. And I knew right off the back, man, it was a different ball game, and I had to respect the rules and regulations in order to continue to live in their house, man. And that wasn't no problem. It was an easy transition.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about Miss Shalise and Mr. Starge or Coach Starge, as I know him, he coached me for a number of years on all those great little league baseball teams. I just think about the number of times that they was picking people up and dropping them off. They made such an impact in the community. They didn't focus on vacation in the summer. Their vacation was making sure we got the All-Star tournaments, making sure that we got to all the places that we need to be. All the parents, not just those two, but also Mr. Rich and all the other parents that was around. Mr. Keefe and a lot of other individuals played a huge role, but specifically Miss Shalise and Coach Starge, man. I mean, the impact that they had on young men all year round, and just making sure we was active. Whether it wasn't just football. A lot of people think that we played just football. We played baseball, football, soccer before we started playing midget league football. And they were just highly involved, in making sure that we had all the things we need. And I just remember Coach Sarge always saying, like, hey, if you don't got a ride, call, leave a message if we don't pick up. And I just know when practice was at 5:15, if I didn't walk to practice, he could potentially be there to pick me up, got the message and just showed up and made sure I
Right.
got to where I need to be. And it carried over even in the high school. When I was playing basketball with you guys were seniors, I was a sophomore. Just always making sure that they was available to help out in any way they could. whether if my parents couldn't take me somewhere or other individuals' parents couldn't be there, they was always available. So we really appreciate them and the impact they made on a lot of people, in that area because they just made sure that we just had the resources that was needed to be successful.
That at that time, man, especially as kids, the best way to keep them out of to keep us out of trouble was to have us around the many sports programs that we played in, and like you said, they wasn't just taking their own kids to practice to and from practice, man. We take the opposing teams
Yeah.
players to practice, man. It was really about the kids, and it was really about keeping us interested and keeping us out of trouble, man. But if you look back at that time, man, Shante Spencer,
Yeah.
Stephen Briston, BB, Joe Taylor, man, Robert Carey, Howie Gibbons, Tone Tone, myself, Mike, man. It was always a car, man. They had two minivans, man.
Yeah.
I don't like minivans to this day because we grew up in them. I don't,
Right.
I never forget, man. Stevie B, he closed my hand in one of them minivan doors, man. My hand was stuck in the door, man. Like it was crazy. And you know what? BB and Steve's mom used to do the same thing, but
Right.
Spartan and Shalice was a machine, man. It was a machine, man. And you gotta appreciate that now. Parents don't do that no more, man. Parents don't do that no more. And a lot of times kids wouldn't come to practice, man. You had to go get them. So
Yeah.
there's a generation of kids that should be proud and should be appreciative of, or guardian angels is what I like to call them, or guardians. Like you said, Mr. Ritchie, Big Chuck Davis, God rest his soul,
Yep.
Mr. Keith Davis, Mr. Lou McCulley, Lasaka's dad, Stars and Shalice. And all these people, even Coach Novak, he drove us to you go to weightlifting in the morning. He didn't let me go home at 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, man. They asked me all the time, "We want to eat some chicken?" Take me all over the place, Kentucky Fried Chicken, and so these kind of do it all parents, and they don't exist no more. They looking for gas money. The parents now, if you take your kids, they want to be compensated for it, man. So that era is golden, and I don't know if it'll ever be duplicated or replicated.
No, definitely, man. I think that they just made it a point to be available, man. Like you said, even the opposing teams, players, whoever kind of needed a ride, whatever was needed, the community kind of wrapped their arms around us to make sure we got to where we need to be. And you look at where a lot of us ended up. We went on to play major college football or major college sports, and went on and got degrees, and was able to put ourselves in position that we are today. And so a lot of that is those individuals in the community just stepping up and just making sure that the opportunity was there for us to be able to be successful, or have a foundation to jump off of, and so athletics and Tutu Ferguson, you can't have one without the other. You're a legend. You're an all-time great in our area. You attended Woodland Hills High School. Now, when you attended Woodland Hills High School, it was on the rise, but you were one of those individuals that helped us get to that point where in my senior year, we come into the season ranked 11th in the country because of individuals like you. If I'm not mistaken, you're one of the first guys that was nationally ranked at your position, in the top 5 in your position. What was your experience like at Woodland Hills? And what was your sports experience like, and just athletics as a whole? How did you feel about that whole experience?
Before we move on and talk about the experience and all that, man, I missed the name, Mr. David Quick. David Quick, also Mr. Quick, man. Also, we put him in that group of guardians and guardian angels, man. As one of the heroes at the time, the unsung heroes. To answer your question, my experience at Woodland Hills sports was awesome, man. Again, man, I wasn't a kid who was just, I was rough around the edges, man. Like my grades was, before I moved in with the Chanceys, man, my grades was bad. I missed a whole year of school because of my home situation. So when I got to Woodland Hills, I guess like all of us was doing, man. We were just hanging out with our friends and gonna make the most of it, man. I'm 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 very thankful that we had good coaches. We had and all of us together was into the right things, man. We played video games, man. What we do, man? Play video games, chase girls, and play sports, man. And that was it.
Yeah.
So at Woodland Hills, man, we'll start with football. Coming into my ninth grade year, I already knew that I was going to be going to camp with the high school team. Me and Rich Goins, to be exact, man. And this was before he was bringing ninth graders to
Right.
camp and all of this, man. In fact, I tried to play varsity football in eighth grade, man.
Wow.
I lobbied down east. I lobbied to play. I tried to play football in eighth grade, and they told me I couldn't do it. But I actually had a real conversation with Mr. Urban and Coach Novak about that, even in eighth grade, man. So ninth grade going to camp, all I knew is I never felt intimidated or none of these things, man. It was just like, man, just go here, do your thing, stay aggressive, man, and see what happens. And
Right.
about a week into camp, when I was in ninth grade, I asked them, they'll tell you, I asked the coaching staff, Mr. Nephilim, like, "Hey, man, I might as well stay up here, man. I'm one of the best players now. Like, ain't no sense I'm mature enough to do it, serious enough about the sport to do it." And by the end of camp, man, they sent Rich Goins back to the ninth grade team, and they told me, man, it's like, man, they're like giving out ninth grade uniforms, and they was like, they was like, well, you gonna be here with us, man. So that was the first step, and like I said, that was a springboard for the rest of my life, man. Being up. There's always a thing they say, man. When we leave this earth, man, what are you gonna be known for?
Right.
You want to be known for something, man, something positive, or but you want to be known for something, man. And right off the bat, he gave me, them put me on the ninth grade team, man. Being the first freshman to ever play ninth grade football, not just play. I started every game, and except for the first game of the year, and it catapulted me to, you know, to put a little extra pressure on myself that I wasn't no longer this little bratty kid who was bad at times. I was bad, I had a bad attitude, man. All of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I mean, I was almost a role model, not being a role model, for the kids, but it was like people was paying attention to what I was doing, man. So I got to thank them for that. Basketball wise, I tried to play ninth grade basketball, and there was a conversation about playing ninth grade basketball, but they were so senior. They were saying, but I could have played varsity basketball in ninth grade too, man. So, like I said, man, I'm grateful for the position, for being able to play, man, and those guys giving me a start to my life that I can never repay them.
No, I think it's big what you talk about. People starting to look at you and see you in a different light. You no longer was this kid that was playing sports and a kid that was still adjusting just to kind of coming over into that Braddock fully, even though you already had family there. You went from that, and in a couple of years, you kind of went into stardom. We had never seen, at least from my eyes, I had never seen anybody start, as a freshman. And you got to figure, we were underneath you. When you played Little League Baseball, you played for CIO. I played on KFC. I was a 9-year-old watching you play as a 12-year-old, and we did start following you, the younger guys, whether it's the Steve Brestons or the Shante Spencers or the Chuck Lewises or the Monte Russells. We did look up to you. We saw you as that guy that you set the bar high for us because we come in with that mindset of like, okay, you could play early. You could either be on the roster as a freshman or you could come in and start as a sophomore or play as a sophomore. So you set the bar high. Speaking about the sophomore season, it was an unbelievable season. It took Woodland Hills to the next level, and you was a part of that. You, the Del Rico Fletchers, the Medee Williams, the Eric Walkers. If I miss anybody, I apologize. But you were one of those individuals on that roster your sophomore year. You helped lead the Wolverines to a WPO title, a state runner-up appearance. What was that year like for you, man? What was that whole experience like for you? And what did that do to the community?
A couple things, man. We'll start on the football side first, and then we'll go into the community side. Football wise, Woodland Hills had never been to a WPO championship. At
Yeah.
this point, it was just it was a collection of good teams that wasn't able to finish the deal. It was like a match made in heaven. If you remember, Del Rico and them when they was in ninth grade, when they combined, they went undefeated.
Right,
When
right,
East and West combined that year, so you had your Eric Walkers, your Fawn Nangies, you had your Del Rico Fletchers, your Medee Williams, you know, even DJ Tone Tone. Man, there was a bunch of good players in that class. So as that class moved up, we just had to sprinkle in. You can't win with one class. It got to be a collection. It's the other players make plays to win a championship, man. And you know, me being I started as a freshman, I wasn't even looked at as a sophomore, man. The next year, because I started as much as some of them seniors that year, man. So the Duro Reeveses and like I said, there was three underclassmen on that state. There was three underclassmen on that state runner-up team that played significant roles. Me, Barry Crable, and Brandon Payne. That was it, man. And I didn't come off the field as a sophomore, man. So the amount of confidence that Coach Novak had in me, man, and you got to be adult enough to handle it too. Like you can't just, the moment wasn't too big, man. That year it was a lot of ups and downs, man. Joe Spaduto's mom passed away after one of our games. We started the year off 1-4. And then we just caught fire, man. We just caught fire and we made big plays. Man, we made big play after big play after big play on the way to the state runner-up, man. I remember, and we had to go through North Allegheny twice to get there. And they only had one loss going into that championship game. We had to beat Mike McMahon and company
mm-hmm.
to win the Whippeal. And then we went to Sharon, PA, and played a team from Erie that was undefeated. And remember, if you don't remember that one, they was on the goal line going in, man, with a couple seconds left, man. And I forget who tipped the ball. Somebody got their hand on the ball that went straight up in the air. And Jerome Tompkins came down with it, man, and took it back to the house for us to advance to the state finals, man. So, like I said, we had a guardian angel with us that year, Joe Purdue. We got the wristbands made, and to be a part of the first ever Whippeal championship is amazing, man, and it's something that nobody could take. But it also raised the bar for Woodland Hills football, man. And we were good enough to win the states, man. It just we jumped out 14-0 on down in town, man. But
I remember.
That was an awesome team, man. And that team had been to the state finals the year before that and lost to McKeesport. So they was coming with unfinished business. And like I said, that was an awesome team. And we came up a little bit short. For the community, man, it just brought the community together. It put us – we ran that momentum probably till 2011 or 12, man, off that momentum, man. We had the parade. It was the stands was packed, man. The neighborhoods all the neighborhoods was at every game. And, for the people behind us, like yourself, like you mentioned, you guys were able to see that. And like I always say, it raised the bar. But it also, at the same time, it's not easy. You got to put the work in. And I think some of our kids now, as we got farther along the line, I think they thought they could show up and win, and it wasn't. You got to show up and put the work in. You got to work hard, man, and it's not easy, man. And that's what we're trying to get our Woodland Hills teams back to. Talent level is the talent level. The talent level is still there. It ain't as in abundance as it was them 7-8 years in a row, man. We had our fourth string running backs in certain situations could have went anywhere in the Whippeal and played. Yeah. So it brought our communities together, brought our people together. It strengthened the Woodland Hills School District as a whole. And when you look at it now as we're older, how much money did Woodland Hills make off of them years, man? When you look at things in a different light, man, I can imagine the athletic budget was healthy.
Right, for sure. Man, I want to bring up one specific play. So if I'm not mistaken, that year we played Plum Borough in the semifinals before we get to the Whippeal Championship, right? And if I'm not mistaken, it might have been at North Allegheny neutral site, one of the neutral site.
Yep.
So I remember, I don't know if it was the first touchdown we scored or the second touchdown or whatnot. Or I don't know if it was, I can't remember the exact situation. I just remember it was a field goal. It was a perfect snap. All of a sudden we see Tutu Ferguson get up with the ball, and then you end up making a couple moves and taking it into the end zone. What's going through your mind, man? It was a perfect snap. I can't remember if it was a field goal or an extra point, but all I know is that you picked it up. I mean, it was perfect to you, and you get up, turn the corner, hit the seam, and score. Talk about that play. Kind of walk us through that.
So it was a field goal. It was a field goal to 10. It was 0-0. To this day, I always say it was a bad snap. It was a perfect snap. I had it already had it predetermined in my mind. I was gonna pick it up and try to make a play, man. And that's what happened, man. And ran to the right, was nothing there, man. Ran to the left, seen the seam and went for it, man. And like I say, man, I play. I always say, man, B came to the sideline. He said, man, I was a perfect snap. Nobody said, man, I was a bad snap, man. I ain't had nothing else to do. But yeah, every once in a while I would fake an extra point or a field goal to tell. I did it my whole career. I was a holder for 4 years. Yeah, so sometimes if I feel like picking it up, I would just pick it up and run with it, man. And it worked most of the time, probably 8 out of 10 times, man. It worked, man. But it's crazy, man. I made it 7-0. And then the next possession, I went on a corner blitz. And the quarterback fumbled. Brandon Payne picked it up and ran it 40 yards, 50 yards, and scored to make it 14-0. So and that's what I was saying about the others. Here's two underclassmen that made big plays, man, to get us going, man. And then we went in cruise control after that. Then we went up winning 41-14. You know what's crazy about that game too? And I was talking to somebody about this, man. It was 3rd and 28, man. I was the personal protector on the punt team, right? Yeah. It was 3rd and 28. We came out in punt formation. We faked the punt. Yeah. I got about 18 yards. We came out in punt formation again. I faked it again and got the first down, man. It was crazy. We faked 2 punts.
Wow, that's crazy.
You asked Del Rico or one of them. Man, we faked 2 punts, man. Ended up getting the first down. So, man, it was an amazing run, man. It was an amazing game.
And you brought up Brandon Payne, another electrifying player to come through Woodland Hills. People don't remember actually your junior year. Both of you guys were running the ball. Both of you guys were electrifying. Talk about what it was like sharing the ball with him. And a lot of people don't realize when we talk about running backs from Woodland Hills, sometimes, with you, because you were in a situation kind of where you played multiple positions, you know what I mean? So it was one of those situations for you where it was like, you're not brought up in that class, of running backs. And so you played with Brandon Payne. Your senior year, you played with Lusaka. And so talk about that experience just playing with those great running backs, particularly in your junior year with Brandon Payne, and what that experience was like, just toting the ball with him. And your whole career pretty much toting it with Grace. You shared the ball pretty much most of your career. Talk about that experience.
So you name me another running back in Woodland Hills history. I had 2 Division I running backs in the backfield with them. I had 2 of them. So, Brandon's senior year, we was both running backs, but also labeled as slot backs, man. The 2-headed running back monster came from Fawn Nanji and Eric Walker, where he started doing a little bit of that, handing both guys the ball. My junior year, he came to both of us and said, you know what, if it's slot right, I was a slot back, he was a running back. He had to know in his mind where he was at all times. And that's where that came from. So if it was slot left, Brandon was the left slot and I was the running back. Mm-hmm. So, and Lusaka was our fullback, if you don't remember my junior year. Lusaka was our fullback, man. But, sharing the backfield with him, man, you couldn't stop both of us. It was hard to stop both of us. But people don't realize when I was in 9th grade, I played 3 football games a week, man. I played in the varsity game, the JV game, and then Monday I played in the sophomore game. Me and Brandon did. And the end of that year, we both had 20 touchdowns in the J. It doesn't count because it wasn't varsity. We both ran for 20 touchdowns. We had 40 touchdowns in the JV seasons. Right. So that next year, man, It was awesome though, man. It was awesome, man. Two very talented young men. And when it go to, like you said, Brandon, to me, Brandon is one of the top 3 running backs all time in Woodland Hills history, man. Like, he got it done, man. He got it done. Very, very talented runner. Had good speed, man. Had good speed. Had ran with power, ran with confidence, ran with anger.
Yeah.
Could see the holes.
Yeah.
And like you said, man, when they talk about the great running backs, man, Brandon is one of the top 3 running backs in Woodland Hills history to me, man. If he would have ran the ball by, think about it. If he would have ran the ball by himself, he might have a rushing number that might not ever been touched. You know what I'm saying? Like if I'd have ran the ball by myself back there, man, one of them years, I might have put up a number that wasn't touched. But unfortunately, we had 2 talented guys,
Yeah.
and and as far as my senior year with Lasaka, same thing, man. 2,000-yard backs, two cats with 20 touchdowns. We have 2,000 yards and 40 touchdowns between 2 dudes, man. So with one guy back there, even our third string running back was Telly, Jason.
Yeah. He was good. He was good.
He could have played running back anywhere. Could have played running back anywhere, man. Reese Walker's, Kurt Hall, man. That backfield was so talented, from top to bottom. Dwayne Fletcher, another dude that ran the ball, man. Another dude that was a good running back, man. We had a stable of backs, man. We had probably 5 or 6 running backs back there that could touch that rock, man. So, again, there wasn't no slack in that practice. The boy behind you can run the ball. Like you better, and I always think somebody's chasing my position. I don't care when I play sport. I always think the dude behind me trying to take my job. So, lastly, man, that backfield we had with Lasaka, we had 3 fumbles total between the 3 of us. Me, Mike Broadnax, and Lasaka. We fumbled 3 times the entire football season, man. And I fumbled in the mud. Luke broke his hand and fumbled. And I can't remember how Mike Broadnax fumbled, but man, we had tremendous ball security, man.
No, definitely. You definitely had tremendous ball security. So that's the football side of things, and we'll kind of get a little bit more in depth to your senior year. But basketball, man. I mean, you also did it on the hardwood. Your sophomore year, you dominated. You started with Del Rico and those guys. I think had a playoff run, if I'm not mistaken, that year as well. When you think about basketball, you seem like you really enjoyed that sport too. I would look at you in high school as like, I couldn't just say he was just a great football player, a great basketball player. You pretty much was great at both things. You was more of an athlete than just really a football player, a basketball player. Just talk about your experience there, man. Playing point guard, coming in as a sophomore. You pretty much went deep into the playoffs into December of football in your sophomore year. And then you go right into the basketball. You maybe had a couple of days. You jump right in on the hardwood and start. Talk about that sophomore year, just a little bit of that junior year playing point guard, and what that experience was like for you.
In basketball, we had Matt Barker, we had Del Rico, was our 2 seniors, was our senior leaders. Our basketball team was pretty good, a little undersized. A lot of our Woodland Hills teams was undersized at that point. But basketball-wise, man, just jumped in the season, man. Averaged 14 points my sophomore year, 13, 14 points my sophomore year. This was a two-way player, man. A two-way player, man. My basketball game, like I always say, I ain't no pure shooter. I ain't no pure 3-point shooter, but I can knock down threes. That my whole career is like that, man. Like I could get hot, but like some guys can, wake up in the morning, man, and get a basketball, man, and shoot threes, man, and make them all day. Yeah. I wasn't never no pure 3-point shooter. I'm a pure scorer, though, man. I get to the basket when I want to. Yeah. It wasn't really much they could do about that, man. So, just being nasty on the basketball court, man, being nasty and ferocious and, man, going 6,000 miles an hour, man, that's my game, man. We played an up-tempo game. And, like I always say, man, basketball-wise, if I had one regret in high school, man, we didn't make any we didn't make any deep runs in basketball, man. We went out to North Allegheny. We played Butler in round 1. We was up 6 points. We was up like 6, man, late in the game, and we ended up losing that game in overtime. And Troy Nunes hit a damn near half-court shot, man, to win the game, man. So, man, bad luck. Like sports, to win a championship, you got to be great, but you got to be lucky too, man. And it would seem like we was unlucky in basketball, man. But it was always a bunch of football players playing basketball. We didn't, like you said, we came out football season and went and played basketball. Like I always tell people, if we would have just been basketball players and trained all off season into the season, man, we would have won a Whitfield title in basketball too, man. We had tremendous athletes, man, playing basketball and football, and like you mentioned, Del Rico and myself played both sports. Like I said, I wouldn't trade that experience for nothing in the world either, man. We just came up short.
Yeah. No, I mean, when you talk about those teams too, it pretty much was our DBs pretty much starting, and Bill Johnson, right? Yeah, Bill Johnson out there, and then Allen played as well. But when you talk about you and the Jason Russells and the Raphael Smiths and Pumpkin, Robert Carey, you guys dominated in both sports. And like you said, wasn't pure basketball players. You could get to the rack and get an and one. And we was going to press everybody. He was going to run everybody off the court. Speaking of basketball, and we're going to flip back into football here in a second, but let's talk about them rivalry games now. During your career, it seems as if that Penn Hills rivalry was the biggest rivalry in basketball. You always went head-to-head with Drew Shafino, one of the top scorers in Whitfield history, one of the best we've seen to come around there, was an elite scorer to basketball from anywhere. And you were one of the guys, probably Shafino's probably about 6'4", 6'5". You maybe were about 5'10" at the time. But I just remember the wars that you guys had, man, playing against each other. Both guys competitors. You wasn't going back down. He wasn't going back down. And them was legendary games. Talk about your experience playing against Drew Shafino.
Woodland Hills, Penn Hills rivalry is at that time, man, was classic. One for the ages, man. Both teams was competitive and had good teams. Before Drew, but like I tell people, Drew's a younger brother. Jake Shafino might have been a better all-around basketball player than Drew Shafino.
Played with him in college. I played with Jake in college.
Jake could shoot. Jake was smooth, man. Jake could shoot. Jake could get to the basket. The awesome point guard. So my wars with the Shafino family started with Jake.
Oh, yeah.
Football and then in the basketball. But it was, like I said, it was a classic rivalry. A lot of noise talking out there, man. A lot of noise talking, man. Like, I wouldn't shut up out there, man. Like, you know what I mean? So, but when you look at Drew Shafino, Drew can score, pure score, like you said, man. But man, I took that and I watched him every time we played him, man, for 2 years, 4 games. I had either Jake or Drew, man to man. And like I said, man, my senior year when we went 16-1, won the section, man, we were trying to become the first team to go undefeated in the section, man. And we end up losing out there 53-50.
So, Tutu, when you look back at football, basketball, you had a tremendous career. We look at the awards that you got just finishing out your senior year. I'm looking at 1998 season. We fell short that year. I know you got injured with the torn MCL and couldn't finish off the season the way that you wanted to. But we just look at the accomplishment. I'm looking at Whitfield Quad A Player of the Year, Prep Star All Eastern Region Team, first team All-State defensive back. Your second time on the Fabulous 22 team. The first time you did it your junior year, which I think you might have been one of the few juniors to make it as a junior for Fabulous 22. Blue Trip Illustrated, you were a primetime prospect, and you were rated the top defensive prospect in the state by many scouting services. Some scouting services even had you ranked in the top 5 corners in the country. As you reflect back on that senior year, how did all those accomplishments feel when you go all the way back to when you were younger, some of the adversity that you went through? Did you make that transition to live full-time in the Braddock and to get to your senior year? And with all those accomplishments, how did all that feel to accomplish and achieve those things?
At the time, like I always say, man, I'm a humble dude, man. So nobody, if you wasn't close to me, man, you'll never hear me talk about stats. You never hear me talking about accomplishments. At the time, like I always say, now when I look at that, man, I'm a member of 5 Hall of Fames.
Wow.
You know what I mean? When you looking back on it now, man, it means something. At the time, I didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
I just like I said, it's a testament to my teammates, to loving the games, loving all the loving sports. Period. So coming from Brad, like I always say, man, coming from Braddock, man, I wasn't supposed to do nothing, man. Like
Right.
I wasn't no different, man. Like I said, I never act different, man. I'm from Braddock. I'm proud of it, and it could have went a whole nother way. It could have went left, man. And being good in sports was my way of expressing myself. The accomplishments and stuff just was icing on the cake, man. So it feels awesome, man. Now it feels awesome now. I mean, I'm older, obviously we ain't playing no more, I obviously didn't make the NFL. Still can't understand that one, man. But what I mean, like I said, man, I'm always happy and very excited for all the young men, especially our Woodland Hills guys, man. Like I always say, man, love the guys that made it from here, man, and everybody's deserving of it, man. There was never no bitterness there, man. But the accomplishments are what I stand on now, man. And I'm very proud of them. I'm very proud of them. But like I said, it's a testament to my teammates and my coaching staff and the people that were behind me the entire time.
So we, as you transition, like you talked about a little bit earlier, had a great run that year in basketball, but fell short in the playoffs that year. Also played baseball that year. You was in the mix of being male athlete of the year, if I'm not mistaken. But you decide to commit to the University of Pittsburgh. And what a lot of people don't realize is you committed that year. You were one of the top defensive backs in the country. Probably maybe the best or one of the best defensive backs on the East Coast that year. You also had Rob Rutherford, and then your teammate Lusaka Polite also was committed to Pitt as well, and Rob Butler, if I'm not mistaken. So the four of you guys decided to make that decision to go in the Pitt. How did that all come about? Did you and Rod have a conversation? Obviously, you and Lusaka talk. You guys grew up together. Was there any conversation with you and Rod? And it's kind of a tough thing because you guys were the top flight guys in the area, top players from a young age. You guys crossed paths in basketball in many different camps. Was there a conversation between the four of you guys to come about? Because if you think about it, that class built the foundation for Pitt for the next 5 or 6 years. Talk about how that all came about.
So my last year at Pitt, obviously, my last three choices, man, I had 17 scholarship offers, man. I could have went anywhere. Like I tell Pitt, could have went anywhere. I could have went anywhere I wanted to go. But at the end of the day, we was coming off a 2-9 season at the University of Pittsburgh, man, and we were bleeding, man. We needed help, man. We were like irrelevant. So, and Penn State was still in that. Penn State was getting everybody, man. Penn State was taking every LeVar Arrington for a little time there. They let Joe Paterno just run through Pittsburgh like he with both hands, take everybody. So our class, really, to be honest with you, was the class before me that got the ball rolling because Brandon Williams was the top running back in the country, went to Pitt, right? Amir Pierce was one of the top linebackers in the country. He went to Pitt. So them two guys, I seen them two guys commit. And then I was like, man, my senior year, and we had a good recruiter, Bob Junko, Coach Junko, was on us tough, man. Lusaka committed first. Lusaka went on his visit to Miami of Ohio. And when he came back, he went on his visit to Pitt, and he committed before me, which played a part. That played a part, man. I was always saying at the time I was playing running back, man, was taking Lusaka. Me and him was going to go somewhere and play fullback and tailback, and I ended up playing defense. But as far as the Perry boys go, Rob Butler and Rob Rutherford, if you don't remember, our basketball season, they started coming to our basketball games.
Oh, wow.
Chuck Sanders that owns Savoy, he started bringing them guys to the basketball games, and that's when we really met and got a chance to talk. And they committed 2 weeks after me. But I had a conversation with Rod and Rob Butler as to possibly doing that, man. And you know, it was basically one of them things where you talk about, but who's going to commit first.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and I never forget this morning, man. School got called off. We had an ice storm. We had basketball practice still. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you remember this. We had basketball practice still. We had an ice storm. We was playing Penn Hill. We was supposed to
Oh yeah, I remember
play
that.
Penn Hill the next day. It was a
Yeah.
Thursday, man. But
Yep.
we still had basketball practice and we still showed up.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I woke up that morning, man. It's a lot of stress, man. I woke up that morning going back and forth from Syracuse. I wanted to go to Syracuse. It was out of Syracuse. For me, it was out of Syracuse, Maryland, and Pitt. Right. And I ended up picking Pitt, but I just woke up that morning and I got tired of I got tired of it. It weighs on you, man. I woke up that morning and I went in Coach Novak's office and said, I'm ready to make a decision. And he goes, man, well, just go to basketball practice and I'll call the news. And he called all the stations and stuff, man. And like I said, to that point, like you see it all the time. Now I'm probably one of the first kids to have a press conference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dudes where you was going, kids wasn't doing that, man. You know, and that's where it came about, man. And then after I committed, I called Rod and I was like, man, I committed to Pitt, man. And then Rob Butler the next weekend. Rob Butler was on my visit, but I committed first, but he committed the next week. And then Rod committed. It took Rod a little longer because Rod was looking at Penn State too. Rod wanted to go to Penn State, so it was like back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then we ended up getting Rod. It was crazy. Then the next thing I did, I got on the phone and called Antonio Bryant.
Wow.
Florida.
Wow.
I turned into our class recruiter. Gerald Hayes, Antonio Bryant, Jabbar Gaffney. Jabbar Gaffney was coming.
Yep.
Man, we had Jabbar Gaffney too. Jabbar Gaffney was coming. And then he was going on a visit to Florida that next week, and it was crazy because they was like, man, he going to Florida. If he take that visit, he ain't coming here. Like he gonna stay down Florida, man. So
Right.
yeah, man. But I'm proud of that too, man. We were them two classes switched it up, man. Switched it up, and like I said, we went to 4 bowl games in a row. So we switched it up, and like I said, we finished the game out of first place in the Big East all 4 years, man. We couldn't beat Miami. We couldn't beat Miami.
Yeah. So speaking of Miami, in your freshman year, you get a chance to play against the national championship Hurricanes. You went up against Andre Johnson, if I'm not mistaken, Santana Moss. What was that experience like playing against those guys, man? You coming in as a freshman, those guys were maybe a little bit older than you were. What was that experience like, man, playing down there, man, in front of those fans and just playing against top flight guys who we see on television every day?
Man, that was one of the most awesome experiences I got to have at the University of Pittsburgh, man. We went to Miami. First of all, our plane was late. You know, we got to Florida at 11 o'clock at night. The game was at 12. We was back in Pittsburgh by 4. We was in Miami for like 7 hours, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that receiving core they had, man, Reggie Wayne, Santana Moss, Reggie Wayne, and Andre Johnson were their 3 starting receivers. I covered Reggie Wayne probably 85% of the game. He had 2 catches for 32 yards, and I had a PI. That still wasn't no PI, but
yeah,
you know, them dudes was awesome though, man. Them dudes was awesome, man. And to be honest, man, when we went back home after that game, that's when I was like, oh yeah, I belong here. I belong here. I'm where I belong, man. That team. Remember that Miami team ended up coming up short. Remember that one game they ended up losing to Oregon Washington early in the season. They went 12-1 opposed to 13-0.
Right.
And then they came back that next year and went undefeated, which I think is the greatest college football team of all time.
Right.
That next year they came back, man.
Yeah. No, I mean, you know, when you look back at your career at Pitt, I mean, you played against some great players. You had some wars against some of those teams, like you talked about those Hurricane teams, them good West Virginia teams. The Big East was where it was at. You know, if I'm not mistaken, you got an opportunity to play against Michael Vick too. Was that your freshman year, or I think it was maybe your freshman and sophomore year, if I'm not mistaken. So you got a chance to play against some big time guys, but none of those guys were bigger than the guy that was on your own team. Larry Fitzgerald, You played corner, he played receiver. He comes to Pitt and kind of from day one was almost like a pro already as like a 19-year-old young man. What was those practices like? What's spring ball like? Going one-on-one with Larry Fitzgerald, who's going down as maybe one of the greatest receivers that we've ever seen, maybe the best pair of hands that we ever seen. I know there's guys like Chris Carter and some other guys that played the game. Odell Beckham had some great hands and some other guys, but Larry Fitzgerald, we can arguably say maybe has the best hands that ever played football. Yeah, so what was that experience like just playing against Larry Fitzgerald every day at practice, competing, and going against the ultimate professional, man? What was that like?
So when Larry first got to Pitt, his first practice, man, his first 2 practices ever, man, he dropped everything.
Oh,
He
wow.
dropped everything, man. But that was expected. A 19-year-old freshman coming from high school, having to learn, in a strange city, having to learn, a new offense, trying to get used to his surroundings. That was to be expected, man. But by that third practice, man, he got it together, man. He's an ultimate competitor, man. Probably besides my hands, I got the best set of hands out. Besides my hands, I gotta give him the man. He got great hands, man. He got great hands, man. Catch the ball, put it away. Ultimate professional, man. Practices, man. We PI'd him a lot at practice, though. We didn't let him. We just PI'd him, man. Like we, we just rough him up, man. Rough him up at practice, but he had his share of catches, man. We won some battles. He won some battles, man. But definitely, the guys we was playing against on Saturdays, man, it made it easy when playing against him. Not only him, man. I played with Lateef Grimm.
Oh, yeah.
I played with Lateef Grimm, who was a Big East wide receiver of the year. I played with Antonio Bryant, who was a Big East player of the year. So it made it easier on Saturday, man, playing against guys like this in practice, man. But he deserves everything he got in football.
Yeah, man. No, that's huge, man. I mean, you got to get a chance to go against some legendary guys, man. So you finish up your career. You had a good career at Pitt. If I'm not mistaken, capped off the last bowl game with a pick in the end zone against Virginia. You was in the mix every year competing, whether you were starting or competing. Even there was a period of time at Pitt where you were even going both sides of the ball for a little bit. So we roll into the 2004 draft. You finish up your last season in 2003. Rounds 1 through 7 kind of go by. Now, pretty much since high school, you were viewed as a guy that was probably most likely going to be drafted playing on Sundays. You just competed at that level. You were just always at that elite level, and you competed against everybody that you played against and always played well. What was that experience like for you? That was your goals and dreams to play at the next level, and then the rounds 1 through 7 kind of go by. What did that do to you mentally, and just where are you at, man, at the end of this draft that year?
So at the end of the draft, man, I was crushed. Man, because I was told, man, round 5 through 7. I was told round 5 through 7, man, I was gonna be drafted. So really the first 4 rounds, I was in Canada the first day of the draft. I was in Toronto. I was in Toronto, man. I didn't even watch the draft the first day of the draft. I didn't even watch it. I didn't start watching it till the second day because that's when they told me that's where I was going to be, man. So we got a call. My agent got a call from the Steelers at the end of round 5. They had two picks in the 6th round. They told my agent that I was going to be one of them picks. So I kind of sat around and waited for that, man. It never happened. We was called again. We was contacted again in round 7 by the Buffalo Bills, and their pick came and went. So it was a shocker, man. It took some time to I never really thought about not being in the NFL. You know what I mean? Right. I was always, from 12 years old. Like I never really had a thought about not being in the NFL. But things happen. There's some other things. There's some other factors. I believe contributed that off the field. And, but like I said, man, it'll make you or break you. It's just a game. It's just a sport. And, I got over it, man. It took a couple years. I couldn't watch the draft for a couple years, and I didn't. Also, like when training camp came around the first 3 or 4 years, I didn't pay attention to that either, man. But then, but that changed my view of the NFL changed after that because I had guys that didn't play no snaps. I
Right.
went to camp. Like Julius Page went to camp, played basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So um, it just make you ask yourself, man, what happened. But at the end of the day, got through it, got over it, man. Like I said, don't shape me, don't make or break me. It's time to get to work. And like I said, at age 43, man, I'm appreciative of everything I got from playing sports.
For sure, man. So you end up having a great run playing Arena 2 ball. You end up getting picked up by Wilkes-Barre Scranton Pioneers. You have an unbelievable experience there, a great time playing. You're talking about that experience, man, and how that all came about.
So after I didn't make the NFL, I went to. I thought about what was next. I wasn't done playing football, so I still wanted to play football. So first, I got picked up by the Hamilton Tiger Cats in Canada,
Mm,
and in 2 days, I had my bags packed. 2 days before it was time to go up Canada and play, I got a call. They cut me,
mm,
and like I said, I remember having a conversation with my agent at the time, and he called me a week before that and was like, "We're gonna try to get some more money out
yeah,
of Hamilton."
mm,
And I was like, "No, don't do nothing, man. Whatever they gonna pay me the minimum, and just let them do what they gonna do.
right, right.
Basically, just let them do what they gonna do. I'm gonna go up there and prove myself, and then the
Yeah,
money will speak for itself. I ain't trying to be here that long anyway, because I was still
right.
pursuing
Yeah,
something else.
yeah,
But he went behind my back anyway and called that general manager up there, man. After having conversations with them afterwards, and he rubbed them the wrong way, man. And they just decided to cut ties. It's easy to they just pick the next guy up, man. So
right, right,
after that, man, I was thinking, they say, hey, man, there's this league, this arena football. And I play defensive back and wide receiver, and man, sometimes guys go from the arena league to the pros. So
right.
it's all with that in mind, going somewhere to keep playing,
Yeah,
to try to get to that point. But when it turned out, man, when I got to the arena league, I like where I was at, man, and I started pursuing all that other stuff. I just did that. Man, for the next 7 years. I played arena football, and I didn't even pursue Arena One. Like where I was at, man, I was playing arena football. I was was making decent money doing
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
The town I lived in, I was on the off season. I was like God there, so I was
Mm-hmm.
like God there. So I had all these gigs off. I was talking to schools, and I
Yeah,
just stayed with that, man. And I did that till my last year I played. I signed with the Pittsburgh Power,
mm-hmm.
and I could have played for the Power, but at that point I was like, man, you know what? I was like 33, signed, and I was supposed to play that week, man. It was crazy. We had a game in Philadelphia to play against the Philadelphia Soul.
Yep.
That Friday morning, I woke up and called the Pittsburgh Power coach and told him, I'm done playing football. I'm
Yeah,
done playing football, like just like that, man. And that was it, man. And I was cool. I never looked back, man. I never looked back. Through all them years I played football, never had a concussion.
yeah,
All right, no, no knee surgeries, no ankle surgeries, no shoulder surgeries.
yeah,
Only surgery I had was on my thumb from jamming it into a wall, man. So I'm 43 years old. I'm healthy. I can still do everything.
yeah.
And you take your health away from it, man. There's guys that played in the NFL. There's guys that played in these leagues, man. And now when we in our 30s and 40s and 50s, man, and they still need surgeries, man. And
Right.
I got all my health, man. So I take that with me, and I thank God for that.
No, for sure, man. And I think it goes bigger than that. You had good runs everywhere you've been. The most important thing I think about your career that people forget about is conditioning. Maybe the most conditioned athlete I've ever been around. Now I got a chance in college to play with some guys like you mentioned, the Jake Shaffinos, the Charlie Fries, Dominic Hickson, Chase Blackburn, Andy Allman. These are guys that played on Sundays. But when I think about Tutu Ferguson, your conditioning. I mean, you could play every down like it was your last. You always were in great shape. In basketball, people think this is probably something I'm making up, but we really ran so you got tired. As far as that's what the coach would do as far as gassers and everything like
That's
that.
right. That's right.
And so I think that was one of the things about you that outside of you had athleticism, you had great hands, you had good speed, you could play basketball, you could play football, you could play wide out, running back, corner, safety, quarterback. It didn't matter. But the most important thing is that there were guys that could play with you for the first 2 quarters, but when it got down to the fourth quarter of football or basketball, you had a whole nother gear that you could take it to another level. And you impacted guys like myself, the Steve Brestons, the Montes, many guys, Tyree Young, that went on to do things in football and just do things in life, man. And a lot of that was watching you and say, man, this guy plays every down like it's his last. And so I think that's important. So in 2020, right? You decided to go back to Pitt, and you decide to go back and get your degree. What made you come to that decision, and what was that like to accomplish that degree, man, and getting your bachelor's degree at Pitt?
So when I moved to North Carolina in 2015, I worked for Freightliner,
Mm-hmm.
and it was always something. I only had 9 credits. I just let them sit out there forever, right?
Yeah.
So in 2015, I moved to North Carolina, and I get a job. I'm working Freightliner, working for Freightliner as a shipping and receiving clerk, and I liked the job.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the owner of Freightliner is a former defensive back from the University of Florida.
Wow.
The executives from Freightliner walk into this company I work for and offer me a job to be the head of logistics on the East Coast. This job paid $92,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
They thought I had my degree. I was like, man, I ain't finished school. And you could see they was kind of like, man, well, this, how long will it take you to finish? I said, I'm gonna have to go all the way back to Pittsburgh, dude. It's gonna be at least a semester. And they was like, man, you could tell they was hurt.
Yeah.
That was my ticket. That was like my Willy Wonka golden ticket, man. Like right now, I'll be 5-6 years in the probably making over $100,000, but I couldn't accept the job. And that's when I took a step back and said, you know what, man, let me get back home and finish something that should have been done. It's already, all I had to do was, I only had 3 classes.
Right,
so
right.
I come back to Pittsburgh, and I immediately enroll in the school. Shout out to Penny Samaya for helping me get back in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy, man. It was like a shock, though, man. I come back in 2020, man. I'm in classroom with kids, right? Yeah. And these guys is on their cell phones. Everything changed as far as information wise, how they distribute information. So I had to, the first couple of weeks, I had to, nobody goes to school after 20 years and comes back and goes to school, man. But I did, man, and like I said, man, I got all A's, man. I came back and applied myself, and like I said, man, there was some things that went on during that semester that I almost gave up on, but I decided to finish it, man, and I'm glad for it today, man. But like I said, man, I was in class with Pickett. I was in class with Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
He wasn't playing at this point, man. I was in class with a lot of Pitt football players. It's crazy, man. That was the COVID year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we ended up on Zoom. Like I was part of that first. I tell you what, I love doing schoolwork from home.
Yeah.
That was awesome, man. So, but man, God willing, got it done, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing when we look back at your journey, man, we're looking at the amount of adversity that you always had mount up against you, and you always found a way to overcome it. We look back at your senior year. We in the midst of a state title run. We got Lusaka Polite, 2 of the top guys in the state. We giving you the ball. We giving him the ball. We running the score up on guys. We in a position to try to make a run for the state. And in the midst of the playoff run, you sprain your MCL, right? You overcame that, bounced back. The first couple of games of the basketball season, you got to play with a brace on. Didn't matter. By the end of the year, when we get to Penn Hills and we're going up against Drew Shafino and company, there's no brace, right? You've always overcame the odds that were stacked against you and always finished what you started. And I think it's a testament to that. When we look back at you coming back to school, like you said, 20 years later, and decided to say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna finish up these last 9 credits. Job or no job, just finishing what you started is huge, man. And so we look back on the journey of the great Tutu Ferguson. Number one, I think it was passion. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you played with a passion that was unmatched. Didn't matter who you was going against. It didn't matter if it was football or baseball. A lot of people don't even realize if you really wanted to take it to the next level in baseball, you could have, but you decided to play football, right? But when we look back, it's just the competitor that you was and the passion that you had for the game. You played every down like it was your last. I remember my mom one time has made a comment to me. She had said to me, she's like, man, one of the things that you got to do, you got to watch is you got to watch how Tutu plays every down like it's his last. Now, this is my mom, you know, not a big sports person, really just went to the games because I played the games, you know, really. And my sister was in the band and everything like that. But that's one thing she always said. She was like, you know, Tutu plays every down like it's his last. And so I think that's a testament to your journey too. But like I talked about before, you know, everybody talks about the quickness and the speed. You know, people talking about the spin move that you had, you know, against Franklin Regional, that was legendary, right, to this day. But the most important thing that you had that a lot of people didn't was is that you had that conditioning, man. Probably one of the most, if not the most well-conditioned athlete ever. And you always had that from a young age. You know, you was always just driven that way, man. So I just want to just give you your crown today. You know, most people say flowers, but I want to give you your crown today, man, because your journey's been an unbelievable journey, man. You inspired me to play the game at a high level as far as I could take it. And I was a D lineman. I wasn't a skilled player. You know, I know Stevie B and others would say the same thing, man, that you inspired them to play the game. And you set the bar so high that you help those guys like Steve Breston and some of the other guys that come after you shoot high because you always set the bar. You always pretty much set the bar of what each year was going to be like. It's like your 9th grade year, where you going to start, right? And then it was like, okay, well, I got through my 9th grade year, and then sophomore year we went to Whippules, right? So you set the record there, right? And then not only that, but then you giving us what we need to see on the basketball court with domination at the point guard position and setting the bar high there, right? So it's like, we can't just do one sport. You got to do multiple sports, right?
Right.
And so I think that was a testament to your journey, man. I appreciate you, man, and all that you've done. You set the bar high. You inspired a lot of young athletes like me. So I salute you, man, and want to make sure you got your crown today.
No doubt. No doubt, man. We you know what, man, you guys get a lot of credit, man. You guys play, you know, like I said, you mentioned Monte and Stevie B and yourself. You know, the guys behind us, man. More than anything is, man, you know, we up the entertainment value. I like to think that I help up the entertainment value now, Woodland Hills, man. And
Right.
also, when you see me work at practice, we running sprints. I'm winning all the sprints.
Yeah, right,
I'm the
right.
best player on the team, and I'm winning every sprint we run, man. You can't slack if you ain't doing that. Then you can't slack, because if the best player on the team is working hard in any sport, and I always say this. That's the last thing I say about that. You mentioned conditioning. The difference between good players and great players is great players don't get tired.
Mm,
Good players get tired. Great players don't get tired.
right.
So if you watch any sport, man, great players keep going. They get like I always say, man. I had a saying down in North Carolina with the employees I work with, and you know, they will stop working when they got tired. No, you work. You stop working when the job is done.
Right, right. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's kind of what it's been. And now we even just talking about like with the transition and everything, man. As we end out here, man, even more too, you came back to the Pittsburgh area, you come back and capture your degree, and now you're at Woodland Hills in a leadership role. You're coaching. Who better to do it but yourself? You set the bar high there. Now you impacting the same community that impacted you, and just to be a role model at the school, to be in the position that you're in, and even now with coaching and coaching baseball and coaching football, things of that nature, man. Man, you just getting started. You just had a lot of mileage on your journey already. You already put up great numbers, and you already did some great things and some unbelievable things, and did a lot of inspiring. But you just getting started now. You just getting started to the another chapter of your journey, man. And so I kind of watched your journey, man. Being in the mix of it, being on some of the teams that you were on, but also watching it from afar when I was up at Akron and watching your journey at Pitt, and then hearing about your journey, man, at Wilkes-Barre, and then now to even see some of the things that you're doing at Woodland Hills too, man. So Man, I salute you, man. I appreciate you coming on your journey, man. The best is yet to come. We're gonna still be tuned in. I still know you can go out there, man, and give a good 20 minutes of basketball. I know you can still do it. So we're gonna be watching from afar, man, as the saga continues with the legendary Tutu Ferguson.
No doubt, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah.
God bless you, man. Like I always said, man, we in it together, man. This is just for a little FYI, man. We got mentoring groups out there now.
Yeah.
Anybody that want to come help, want to come talk to these young men, man, they can use it. You know what I mean? When you see better, you do better, and that's what we're trying to give them now, man, from all angles, man. And like I said, I appreciate the love. And until next time.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, thanks everyone for tuning into your journey. Be safe and God bless.
All right, peace.